Hello everyone, roadmap roundup 22nd of October 2025. Interesting to call this a roadmap since we don't have a roadmap anymore since February 2022. Let's see if there's something interesting. Assault rifle kill shot featuring both a ballistic and energy projectile. Yeah, CRT showed this recently. I think it's a silly design and doesn't make any sense. LMG pulverizer. This LMG features a massive drum mag firing 50 cal rounds downrange at targets. This doesn't make sense, at least not at the moment. You don't need 50 cal rounds. Actually, there's no threshold damage right now. In real life, you can wear armor, protecting against pistol rounds or against even rifle rounds, depending on the level of your armor. In Star Citizen, you can wear the heaviest armor and you still take damage from the weakest pistol round. As long as we don't have threshold damage, meaning you need a certain amount of round to do damage to a certain target, this doesn't make any sense. Blade VZK1, these Vandal-inspired knives are a new melee weapon. Okay, a new melee weapon. Anvil Paladin, Espia Stinger, and Gray's Market Chef were of course released. Mission pickup on location, enabling new missions to be discovered and added to journals when you approach or enter a designated area. This is first being introduced to Viculo's Imperium. Get rid of Viculo. I think this thing is so unimmersive and it's such a grind. Monocular rangefinders. Monocular rangefinders make surveying the battlefield easier with a 10 times zoom to spot hostiles at distance and light amplification providing greater night visibility. I think I heard somewhere this is exclusively Viculo loot, which would be a bad idea. 4.4.0 New Viculo ship offerings. RSI Meteor and Guardian MX. Yeah, again Viculo. Why does CRT think Viculo is a good idea? They added a whole random loot box thing with Viculo. This is really, really lame and no fun. Shotgun pistol, triple down, bolt action, mag drum, triple barrel and a buckshot pistol. This whole sentence doesn't make any sense. You don't want a shotgun pistol, especially not with a drum magazine and with a triple barrel. Yeah, CRT goes more and more full cartoon and this is not why we backed the game, Chris. Missile launcher boom tube, 3 rockets strapped together in a tube, releasing a single deadly payload. This weapon has high spread and an arming distance leaning into its chaotic, unpredictable nature of finding the sweet spot distance. As far as I know, this thing doesn't have any aiming devices, not even iron sights. Even the good old M79 grenade launcher had iron sights. And why do we need a new missile launcher? We have Animus missile launcher. CRT introduced Animus missile launcher in 3.8. And since then, this thing is totally buggy. You can be happy if one of the 3 missiles it fires hits a stationary target at 20-meter distance. And this thing has aiming. And now we are getting something new and CRT doesn't care to fix older things like, for example, Animus. Interstellar hauling missions. Yeah, this is coming. I'm looking very forward to this. Let's hope it's mostly bug-free. Exterior freight elevators, adding new ways of loading and unloading cargo in Nyx and Pyro. Yeah, this was mostly done so we can load, unload high C. Do you have any idea, Chris, how silly this is? You want us to load, unload high C using the magical handheld tractor beam, 1 container at a time. More than 8 years ago, Chris and Tony Surak talked about loading, unloading, and they talked about services, machines, and NPCs. Tony Surak said, 8 years ago, we have a pretty comprehensive design right now. No, Tony, you didn't have anything 8 years ago. You still have nothing.
Steve Apollyon asks, are there any plans on cargo loading of the bigger ships, such as the whole series of ships, and is the loading at a space station or even planetary going to be automatic? Or will we have specialized small cargo loading ships similar to Argo to load manually if we choose to, similar to the Argo?
Yeah, we have talked about the fact that we don't want the larger ships to basically just, park it, click the button, and it's done. That these larger ships that have vast quantities of materials would actually take a significant period of time to unload and may result in missions for NPCs and/or other players to actually undertake. We've actually got a pretty comprehensive design right now, but we're still iterating through that because we actually want to unify some of the functionality for loading and unloading.
Like if I have a big container ship and I pull into the port of LA here at Long Beach, there's a whole setup. There's longshoremen, big cranes, and there's services, and the crew of the container ship don't actually unload the containers themselves. There's equipment that does it, and there's people that are paid to do that. And I would say that in general, in sort of the bigger sort of spaceports, you would have that same kind of setup where you would have the ability to unload the bigger ships, unload the containers. Potentially, we've talked about having the ability for players to sort of play the part of a longshoreman if they're running around in a Largo and taking off a container from a Hully and dropping it to another place and doing that, or having AI do that. And then there obviously will be cases where, which is probably a later question we have here, but there'll be manual unloading and loading of cargo where you don't have the sort of big services, like if I just had a ship and I was off the coast somewhere and there wasn't a port, then obviously I would have to be doing it myself. And so I think we've been looking at ways that you have the sort of automatic option that's the services provided.
Automatic option when appropriate, but the fidelity so that on these smaller ships you can actually, and this makes for much more interesting gameplay in a lot of times, in a lot of different cases, because you can imagine scenarios to where you need to deliver a smaller quantity, a half dozen, a dozen, specific crates of some sort of, illegal liquor or something to somebody at a planet.
I think so the answer is there will be services, but we'll also have some specialized ships and equipment for unloading cargo.
Nyx Missions Pack 1, adding a first pack of missions to Nyx, using existing archetypes with a fresh new narrative spin against new enemies. Yeah, I guess same old boring missions, but this time you can actually fight Venduls. Well, at least Vendul ships. I don't know if those ships have real Venduls inside, and if you can fight those Venduls in first-person combat. Nyx Champ Points, introducing champ points between Nyx and Pyro and between Nyx and Stanton. Yeah, this is of course needed when we are getting Nyx. Vendul NPC pilots, Stinger, Clave, Scythe and Blade make an appearance as NPC ships flown by Vendul. I hope when we destroy those ships, there will be actually Venduls floating in space. Sworn enemies, implementing a new operation welcoming players to Nyx. Intersec is looking for contractors willing to investigate abandoned QV logistics stations to follow the trail of Vendul tech that was sold to ASD. More stuff for Wikilo, Vendul tech, Nyx system, of course, we are getting the Nyx system to make all of this happen. Glacium Ring, implementing the Glacium Ring, a dense asteroid belt located in the Nyx system. Delamar, implementing Delamar, an inhabited asteroid in the Nyx system, home to the settlement of Lesky. Shouldn't it mean it is habitated, says the settlement Lesky? Implementing Lesky, a settlement on the asteroid Delamar in the Nyx system. I wonder how much from the old Lesky is left. The outside looks very different than what we had before. As far as I know, we won't get the planets of the Nyx system in 4.4, only Delamar with Lesky and asteroid belt. QV service stations, implementing abundant QV stations across Nyx, some now occupied by a new enemy faction. Where have I heard this before? Oh yes, Pyro. Medium Battletech armor, adding a new medium Battletech armor. Wikilo, medium Battletech armor, adding a new Wikilo's medium Battletech armor that players can obtain by completing the corresponding mission from Wikilo's Emporium. Wikilo. I find Wikilo absolutely unimmersive, absolutely intrusive. A terrible idea, but CRG seems to think Wikilo is the best thing ever. Expect more Wikilo. And we are getting new hairstyles. Wow. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
You and I have unfinished business.
Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.